Hey everyone, this is Tom and welcome to another edition of Saturday Sketching. For this project, you'll need paper, pencils, a good eraser, and a ruler. Today we're going to be working on a seasonal triptych. But what is a triptych? A triptych is 3 separate panels displayed together side by side to create a full picture. We're going to be working together to create a time-lapse triptych that represents a transition from winter to spring, featuring a little snowman. So let's get to work. Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, I have our paper ready to go with the grid that we made last time. If you haven't made one of these yet, maybe, take a look at your original drawing from last week, which I have right here. Measure it against this paper. Create your grid. It'll make things way easier when we're planning things out today. But if you've done that already, great, and we can get started. I'm going to have this right next to me. You won't be able to really see it over here, but it is important for you to have yours right next to you so you can sort of eyeball it and figure out where everything is. Keep everything consistent as possible. So today we have to make our snowman here melt. And I feel bad for the guy, but, it's time for spring to come along. And so, sorry, buddy, but you gotta melt. So we're going to start. We want to make it as drastic as possible. Not so drastic where he's completely melted, but we have to really show a perfect middle ground. Not perfect, but a really good middle ground between the original, totally in shape winter snowman and the completely melted springtime scene that we're gonna have later on. So it's a little tricky, but we're gonna try it and see how it goes. Now we have this line up here. This is the top of our snowman's head, and because he's gonna be melted, he's not gonna reach the top of where he was. When he melts, he's gonna sink down lower and lower and lower. So we're going to have him come down a little bit farther than that. We really want it to be a sort of drastic melting situation, because by the time we get to our third page, everything should be mostly gone. And so we got to really represent the transition there. So I'm going to come way down here, and I'm going to make a nice melty sort of thing, mound down here. Yeah, so that's looking pretty sad already. And I'm going to draw his little hat up here. And, keep your eye on the original drawing that you were doing before and sort of see how it lines up. Again, this is going to be melting, so the shapes are going to be very abstract. It's not going to have to be perfect, which is great. It makes things a lot easier to draw and a lot easier to make it look believable. But you do want to keep some consistency, especially with solid objects like the hat. If you drew that, if you decided to give him a hat or a scarf or whatever you decide to give him, you want to keep those elements consistent. So that's why it's important to try to keep your drawing next to you. The one from last week, try to keep it next to you. I'm going to do my little smudge again. You don't have to. It doesn't really do a lot in this case, but I don't know. I like the way it looks. Again, it's not exactly the right material, but, that's no big deal. Now we're going to take the elements that were on his face, like the eyes. I'm going to keep flipping back to this, so bear with me. The eyes, the nose, and the mouth, we're going to take all of those elements, and they're going to slide down because, while the snow is melting around them, these are solid objects that aren't going to melt, so they have to stay pretty much at the same shape they were before, but they're going to be sliding down because the snow isn't solid anymore. So we're going to have one eye come down this way, like that. And then we'll have another up here. And that'll really show you that, these two were not in the position they were in before. You want to try to keep them close to the general area they were originally, but you want to push them a little bit farther away so that you can show that they moved. So as you can see, they're in different spots than they were before, obviously. So we'll take the smiling elements and sort of move them around in sort of melty ways where they're not exactly in the spots they were before. So yeah, so you can kind of get the sense that there was a smile here, but not so much anymore. Now we're going to come down to the body, have that come all the way down. You really don't want it to be a huge shape because then, you know, we want to show that it's losing its consistency. So this arm on the left that was all the way up here, we're going to kind of bring it down so that it's sliding a bit down off of his body. So we're going to point it out this way. And make sure you're consistent with how many prongs or whatever there are of your stick. Maybe add some melty snow on top here. So that it's stuck in the snow, but it's not in the spot that it originally was. Same thing with this arm here. We're going to have it point down. Have the snow glide down like that. And don't forget to change out some of these lines here. You know, make it look like the snow is melting. And now for the bottom of the body, I'm going to come up a little bit higher because it's going to be bunching up as it's starting to melt. So it's spreading out a bit. You know, it's a lot farther out than it originally was because it's sort of melting and it's, you know, losing its shape. But you want to make sure that the bottom is consistent because that's sort of the ground that it's standing on. And you want to make sure that stays pretty consistent. So, you know, you can make the lines sort of work like that. It doesn't have to be a perfect straight line, but you want it to be about, you want the lines to end where they're supposed to end. And underneath him, very important, sort of flat, like we're going to add a little puddle. You might even want to go bigger than that. Erase this line here. Just to show that, you know, things are changing. Maybe add another little puddle over here. And another one over here. That'll sort of telegraph that this is these are puddles and things are starting to melt. Okay, now for our background. Oh, before I forget, before we move on to our background elements, let's get these buttons sliding down. There was 3 originally. Now they're sliding down off of our snowman. Now from here, what we're going to do is move on to our tree. Now our tree, because it's a pretty sturdy object, we want it to be as consistent as possible. So maybe come back over here with the ruler and just sort of make a quick little line to show where the tree ends. And you can even take it again, yeah, and do another line up here. This will show you that this is like the top of the tree. Doesn't have to be perfect. But you want to keep it close so you can sort of eyeball and get the tree to be as consistent as possible. So, yeah, so what we'll do is down here at the bottom, I kind of left the impression of like bunched up snow there. So what we're going to do now is sort of mimic that. But then also we want to kind of create this idea that maybe there's not as much snow as there used to be. So you can create some lines. These lines here will be the grass. And you know, it's not, obviously it's not perfectly grown out yet, but you know, we'll create the idea. Now let's come back to the tree. You know, you want to try to be as consistent with the line work on the tree as you possibly can. If you're really concerned about it being perfect, you can take your original drawing up to a window, or if you have a light box handy. I know I don't, but if you do, you can use that and trace your original tree to make it really perfect. But you know, we're doing things sort of the simple way, so you just try and eyeball it and get as close as you can. Mine's not going to be perfect, and you know, nobody will expect yours to be either. But you know, try the best you can. I've been copying and, you know, things like that, eyeballing things for pretty much as long as I've been drawing, you know, so it's something I'm pretty used to. It might be a little bit more difficult for others, but, you know, do what you can. Like I said, you're welcome to pause this video if need be, and, you know, head to a window, maybe on a sunny day, and copy the tree from the original drawing. I'm going to add some details here. Keep things as consistent as I can. There we go. Do a bit of shading there, like I did in the original drawing. Don't forget to take away the grid elements so that they're not attached to the drawing. Okay, now from here, we're gonna have, I'm actually gonna add some droppy elements here of like the snow melting. Maybe add some puddles down below to show that the snow had been melting there for a while. That doesn't look good. There we go. Maybe make the snow on top of the tree branches a little bit smaller, a little thinner, the piles of snow. And then what I also would start doing is adding some scribbles for leafy elements that are going to turn into a big tree later on. Starting to sprout. It's not really consistent with the way nature really works, but it adds to the image. Makes things, you know, a little bit more dramatic in the transition between spring and winter. Okay, so that's a pretty dramatic change over there on that side. And I didn't intend for this, but it sort of looks like the tree is standing up a little bit taller than it originally was, which actually kind of works for the theme of the drawing. So, you know, I lucked out there, I guess. Anyway, so now let's flip this over to this side, and now let's start working on the left-hand elements. We'll grab our ruler again, trace out the edges of our little pond here. It doesn't look consistent, but that's okay. You don't have to measure it perfectly with the old drawing if it doesn't work. Just measure it against the back of your current drawing. Okay. There we go. We got our little lake here. Pond, whatever. I keep changing it. Lake, pond, Let's say it's a pond, okay? Hopefully I'll remember that much. Okay, can add little squiggly lines to show that it's water now. What we'll have here is our ice semi-melted. It's not as sharp of a block as it used to be. Maybe get rid of these edges here. And we're actually going to have our little fish popping out of it a bit. And instead of looking straight ahead, I'm going to have his eyes looking this way to show that he's got a little bit of movement back. And now for the clouds. Clouds are going to not take up as much space as they used to, so we'll have them kind of spread out a bit. And another one will be this way. And what we'll do is in the corner here, we'll have, little bit of sun popping out. And the rays there. Okay, so now we can sort of see the difference between our original drawing and our current one. Snowman's looking a lot sadder than he did last time around, but you know, no worries. I'm sure he'll be back again next winter. I'm going to erase these grid elements here. You might want to hang on to yours until the third drawing is complete, because then it'll make it easier to sort of measure things out. Though by that point, everything will be so different that you may not even need the grid anymore, with the exception of maybe planning out where the background elements are in relation to the rest, to the snowman and the rest of the image. But yeah, there you have it. We got our melty snowman. Pretty good stuff. Looking forward to the final transition of spring. I'm a big spring fan myself, so you know, as you can imagine, I've been looking forward to this for a while. So I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so there you have it. There's our melty snowman. Next time around, we're gonna make it a full spring picture. I'm not exactly sure yet what we're gonna do with the middle area where the snowman used to be, but you know, I'm sure it'll turn out to be something fun and spring inspired. Thanks for joining me this time around. Hopefully you had fun, and hopefully you will return next time and join us again. Until then, take care.